fights.
5 Live Boxing.
Finally, a pod. 5 Live is in the Big Apple. It's the boxing pod to launch the fight week. Amanda Serrano against Katie Taylor. Madison Square Garden, 20,000 people. And we've started the week. The week has actually started. I'm on the 18th floor of a very swanky nightclub called the Moxie. I will never get in here, don't worry. The bouncer didn't even want to let me in when I had a pass on, and it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I don't blame him. An hour ago, I was on the 80th floor of the Empire State Building, and I was there with one of our senior reporters at the BBC. And I'm going to tell you now, she could not walk outside. She got to the 80th floor. She overcame her fears. I helped her. I held her hand. But she couldn't get outside on the platform. And I was relieved because it was quite scary. Carol Barry joins me. Carol, now, first of all, let's not talk about the fact you couldn't walk out on the 80th floor. Forget that.
Well, I think I should correct that. It was the 86th floor.
Hey, oh, shoot. So could you have done it on the 80th? Is that what you're saying?
Definitely. I'm fine up here on the 18th floor. And I will say I told you repeatedly that I was not good with heights, so really the whole event should have been cancelled.
But the actual story behind the story is I came so close to actually taking you outside.
The door was open.
I know.
I just couldn't walk through it.
So you actually pushed through barriers you'd never pushed through before. Well, listen, let's crack on with the fight. It's fight week. We're not looking on this particular show. We're in this building and it's 4 or 5 in the afternoon and there are dozens of people in here I want to talk to. But let's just set this fight historically. I was asked earlier on, is this the biggest women's fight of all time? Well, I'll answer first, yes. What comes close to it? And is it the biggest? I'm asking you.
I think so, in the context of it's Katie Taylor fighting in another fight against a huge world champion, Amanda Serrano. It has to be the biggest fight. No woman has ever headlined at Madison Square Garden. So it has to be the biggest fight. It's hopefully going to be sold out. That's what everyone is saying. That's what we would expect it to be. I don't think any fight comes close. Fights that would have come close would be fights that Katie Taylor has been involved with.
Absolutely. Now, you saw the pair of them today. They walked past us when we were waiting for lifts. They've walked past us when there was a little ceremony out inside the Empire State Building. And you saw them outside through the glass on the landing there. What is your impression looking at the two of them? I know we're not experts at reading body language, but it is fight week and we do cover boxing. So give me your observations on the two of them for what you saw.
Well, I would say that hindsight is always 20/20, so definitely next week we'll be saying something different. But at the moment, Katie Taylor looks the more fighter at home, let's say, in this scenario, in the big fight week. Amanda is a great fighter, a great champion, has achieved a lot, but probably hasn't been to anything
like this,
headline any event like this. So I would say she looks not nervous, but not as home as Katie does.
Now, she might say, that's me getting in the zone, but I'm with you because the one thing about Katie is the amount of enormous events she's been at. Obviously, the Olympics, but we forget how many times the Worlds, the Europeans, we forget about all of her major professional fights. And I know Amanda Serrano's won world titles in 7 weights, so we know the history. I understand it's good history, don't get me wrong. But some of those fights were in front of, well, a few hundred people. Let's get that right. This is a whole different level.
And fighters come up against this all the time. Great fighters, world champions. When they get to the big lights, they can't handle it. It happens all the time. Some fighters crumble, and you hear them talking afterwards. I just didn't expect fight week to be that difficult. It took so much out of me.
Because we had a bit of that last weekend with both Tyson Fury and Dillian Whyte saying, oh, no, I'll be able to handle it.
Yeah.
But you don't know because you've never walked out in front of 94,000. You've never taken that 4-minute walk to the ring. And in Dillian's case, you've never waited 12 and a half minutes for your opponent to come out and listen to that crowd and knowing everyone there's against you. You've never done it. You can't say you can't say you'll be all right. You can't say what you're going to do because you've never done the thing.
You just don't know. A fighter can't know until it's happening. They're under the lights and they're in the midst of it. They just don't know how they're going to react. They don't know how it affects them. They don't know how it's going to affect not so much their performance, but their mental capability to stay switched on. Because it's a different thing when everyone is roaring at you. I mean, we're going to have a lot of Puerto Ricans here. So
we're going to have a lot of Irish here.
A lot of Irish here. So I imagine the crowd is going to be maybe 60-40 in Katie's favor. But Amanda is not the big star in this scenario. It's Katie. And like you said, Katie has been through it all.
I think the bookies have got Amanda as a slight favourite. I mean, we're not going to talk about who's going to win and who's going to lose, but I think the bookies have got her just as a slight favourite. Because when she came to London, she talked a good fight in London.
She did.
She talked a brilliant fight in London. She looked different then. I mean, her face looked different then. I thought today she looked really like not drained, because we know she's good at the weight in theory, but her face looked really drawn. I know it's only a visual, but that was my interpretation.
She did, and it's a different experience when you're at the press conferences. There's not as much pressure as them. When you get to fight week, it is fight week. Everyone can change during fight week, and Amanda's looks almost, it's hard to say, but almost small compared to Katie. She looked a little smaller, and the vibes around her, vibes is probably not a good word, but the aura around her was that she felt small.
Yeah. Now, also on the bill, actually, Carol, I'm going to stop talking to you now for a second, because Sky Nicholson's one that I've hired Sky. Now, hello. So we've got Sky Nicholson in. Now, we've had Sky with us before. Sky, can I just say something? Are you ever going to fight somewhere that isn't exotic, that isn't on a massive bill? So your first fight was in San Diego in a massive fight. Your second fight was on a Josh Warrington undercard, if I'm not mistaken. Was it Josh Warrington? It was, wasn't it? And your third fight's on a Katie Taylor undercard. Here's the thing. Win this one and retire. Why not? You're on top.
I know. I've been very spoiled. I'm very lucky, but just taking every opportunity that I get and making the most of it.
This is such a big event, isn't it? I mean, it's a big boxing event, but it's also massive for the women's game. And I know, you're not a person that just became, a bit of a star. You've been a star. You've been competing at major level for, 10, 11 years now at that level. Did you ever think, apart from in your wildest dreams, that there would be a night like this for women's boxing, 20,000 sold out at Madison Square Garden?
Absolutely not. I definitely didn't see it coming, but I'm very, very proud that the moment is here and the moment is coming this weekend, and to be a part of it is, a dream come true.
I'm going to ask you this: where'd you go after this? No, really, what do you do? You're in the biggest fight in women's history on the undercard. You're going to be coming out in front of 20,000. You've got to be on the Joshua bill, haven't you? If we go to Saudi Arabia, come on, you can tell me. Between the two of us, you've got to be on that bill, surely.
I'm not sure what'll be next, but I do know that I guess the only way to be better than this weekend will be to headline myself one day.
You know what I found about you, Sky? And I was telling my producer Pat. I said, she comes across all lovely and friendly, but actually, she doesn't give us anything. She doesn't tell us any secrets. We need to know you're definitely out. No, I'm only kidding. Sky, listen, I know you fought in front of big crowds, and you had massive pressure when you won the Commonwealth Games gold, because it was in your hometown. And you've been on big bills, and I know you've been at some big bills when you've not been fighting, so you know what it means. It will be. When you come out on Saturday, it will be one of those events where you walk out and you go, whoa, your breath's going to be taken. Yeah. You must be looking forward to it, though.
I can't wait. These are the moments I live for. These are the moments I train for. And I feel like the more pressure, the better I'm going to perform. So, no, I absolutely can't wait. And
I've got the last question is, because after the last time, my wife said to me, she said, she sounds lovely. I said, she is lovely. she says she a fighter. I said, trust me, she's really nasty in the ring. And I said, and I'll tell you why, because she's living down in South London. My wife went, leave off. I said, I'll tell you. How's life in South London?
Loving it. Absolutely loving it. My little home away from home in Bromley. Shout out to Bromley in Kent. No. I absolutely love it. Honestly, I'm begging to fight again before I go home. I want to have one more before I go home. So.
Oh, brilliant. Sky, listen, fantastic talking to you. I'm going to go and find some other people in this room.
Thank you.
Cole, sorry about that. Just that.
That's okay.
I know it was a bit abrupt the way I kicked you off there, but if she might be going home soon, and I just wanted to get a couple of minutes with Sky.
You won't be the first man to snub me for Sky Nicholson.
No. I mean, she does a good job, and I mean, this is an interesting thing there, because Katie does the same thing. She's left Ireland and moved to Connecticut, where she ostensibly lives. So Sky's done the same thing. Sky spent most of the last year in South London. That's a commitment.
It is, and it goes overlooked, I think, a lot. That fighters go across the globe. They leave everything they know behind in the pursuit of getting better. But like Katie, Sky has had to come where women's boxing is at its peak, and that's in the UK.
Yeah.
Whatever about the American scene at one stage, it just doesn't have the same eyes on it in the UK, the same amount of interest in it in the UK, and that's why Katie signed for Matchroom and Eddie Hearn. And it was a match made in heaven, and Katie's timing is pretty impeccable in the ring, and so it is outside the ring as well.
No, that's a really good point, Nat, in that Eddie was leading away, he was putting on more shows, and what's more, he was aggressively pursuing women, and he was putting them in good fights. He was aggressively pursuing them, and he was charging, and he was promoting them properly, and Katie was just there, right person, right time.
Also, Katie had the history of someone who'd already done it. Oh, we're going off
Cole,
again.
I'm going to sack you again. I'll see you in a second, Cole, don't worry.
Okay, I'll stay here.
So we moved to a slightly quieter place, and Katie's joined me here. Katie, it's fight week. I don't like talking to fighters in fight week, I'll tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time. It's a big event. How are you dealing with it?
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. It's a privileged situation for me to be in. These are the sort of things you dream of as a kid, so I'm just looking forward to it. I'm excited about it, and ready to perform on Saturday night.
But you've been in big fights before, maybe not as big as this, but you've been in Olympic finals, world amateur finals, and you've been in big professional fights, so you've been there.
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't get any easier, does it?
The fight week stuff is always very busy with media stuff, but in terms of the fight itself, this is exactly what I was made for. I was born for these moments, and this is a moment in history on Saturday night, and these are the sort of things that I was dreaming of as a kid. So,
do you feel different, Katie? Because there's lots of stuff attached to this. Do you feel different for this one, even though you've been through it hundreds of times, amateur and pro? Does this feel special or different?
It definitely feels different. Ever since the fight was announced a few months ago, you can sense the excitement. You can sense the buzz around the fight. So, this is a mega fight, and it definitely feels like it.
If you had your way in fight week, you'd just have your feet up with your Bible, watching a bit of TV with your mother, wouldn't you? I know that. Exactly. That's why I really appreciate it.
No, not at all, Steve. Thanks so much for the
because it's been a long time now, hasn't it, with you? It's been a long time of pressure, a long time of spotlight.
Yeah, no, it's definitely been a great journey, and I've been privileged and blessed enough to have a great career so far, and Saturday night is going to top everything I've done. This is the pinnacle of sport on Saturday night, and I'm just grateful to be in this position.
And finally, Katie, and thank you so much for this. I'm going to tell you again what I always tell you. If I had £1 for every mum or child or adult that stopped me and said, I fight, my daughter fights, my niece fights because of Katie Taylor, I'd be a rich man. You'd be even richer. It's just amazing, isn't it?
It is. That's the most special part about this journey. And this fight is not only great for myself and Amanda, but it's also great because it is going to inspire the next generation of fighters. And that's exactly what I'm in the sport for. That's the sort of legacy I've always wanted to leave. And this influence is absolutely a huge privilege.
Now, this has been a huge privilege talking to you, Katie.
Yeah, thanks to you.
First of all, Amanda, when we saw you in London, you were very happy and very relaxed. You still look relaxed, but I know you're smiling now, but you're serious now. It's real. It's happening.
Yep, it's finally happening. I'm super excited that it's finally fight week, and I just can't wait to get it over with.
What do you think it'll be like on the night with 20,000 or 18,000 now? Do you visualise that? Do you think about that?
Well, no pressure. No,
no pressure. Yeah,
I think it's going to be an amazing night. I was lucky my last two fights being on the card with Jake Paul was in sold out arenas and events. So I have the crowd already down packed. But to have my crowd backing me up and the Irish crowd, I think it's just going to be a great, exciting night.
Well, Puerto Rican and Irish fans, there's one thing they make a lot of noise. They're passionate, but they also know about boxing. Yeah. They know their boxing. Now it's really weird because you're sort of circling Katie, you're passing each other, you're crossing each other, you're coming face to face. She's over there, you're over here, you're 20 feet apart. Have you sort of tried to look in her eyes, or isn't that something you do, Amanda?
No, that's nothing I do. It's the fight business. This is a business. Katie Taylor, I respect her as a champion, as a fighter that she is. But come fight night is a different story. She has something I want, she has something that she wants to keep, so we're going to go out there. But, I respect all my opponents, and Katie is not the last opponent I'm going to respect.
No, we're sort of half joking about there being no pressure, and there's no pressure on you. You just got to go out and do what you do. But it's a massive fight, isn't it? Not just for women's boxing, but for boxing itself. Because, you and her, Madison Square Garden, home of boxing, great fight. It's an amazing event.
Yeah, no, it is. I say I'm not taking this is not just for me and Katie Taylor. This is for the whole sport of women's boxing. And I think all we have to do is put on a hell of a performance, like I know we're gonna do, and we're gonna have plenty of fans for women's boxing.
You know what, Amanda, it's been a pleasure talking to you in London, pleasure talking to you on the show on Zoom, but more than that, a pleasure and a delight talking to you and getting your time here, unbelievable, against the odds, fight week.
Yes.
Thanks so much, Amanda.
Okay, thank you so much, pleasure.
Now I'm going to go over to, he's just get him, he's just having his last piece of cauliflower. Joe Makovsky. You know, we spoke in London, up that lovely building, looking out over the Thames, and it was dramatic and it was brilliant. It was truly brilliant. And I don't know that it was always going to happen this once it was announced and done then, but this is the Tuesday of fight week. And I'm going to tell you something now, hand on heart. And I've been at some big fights over the last 30-odd years. I can't ever remember being so sucked in on the Tuesday of fight week.
I think you're right, and I think the turnout at this event and various events we'll put on with our friends at Matchroom this week will be reflective of the media interest, which is reflective of the public interest in this fight. It is without question one of the best promotions we've ever run. We've obviously been at this for 4 or 5 years in the US and more recently in the UK. The buzz around this fight, and obviously next week with Canelo, I've not seen before. So we're really excited. I think the opportunity for the fighters is long overdue. It's reflective, I think, of a broader interest in women's sport.
Yep.
Organisations like the BBC, like Sky Sports, like many of the UK media outlets, we're alongside them in trying to give women's sport the platform it deserves. And we're doing that because when we do, when you give the marketing and PR push that men's sports properties do not lack for, the eyeballs come and the commercial value comes. And that's what we're interested in. This is not a good or right thing to do. It's not the reason we're doing it. It's not a CSR initiative like we get accused of it being occasionally. This is a fight and a campaign that makes good business sense, as do many of our other investments in women's sport. So we're going to continue doing it. And I think this weekend's a bit of a milestone in that whole process to elevate women's sport.
Well, I think we'll look back on this weekend in 5 years and 10 years. I think we'll look back on this week and we'll look back on the fight. And I think we'll look back on the ripple effect from it. Because Katie, you know enough about Katie. And if you have, if you've been listening to me, I've been banging on about Katie for 12 years or so, way before the Olympics. She's more than a pioneer. She's some other sort of category above pioneer. And Amanda herself, her position inside American women's boxing with all those titles and the ability to take any title at any weight, at any fight, at any time, makes her a bit of a cult hero here. The combination of them is just perfect. I don't know if you saw, they were both sitting down, separated by about 20 feet, and they were just sneaking glances at each other, just over someone's shoulder. And you could sense it when I was talking to the pair of them earlier. Joe, you got a sense of this fight from these two. The kind of sense you get with the very best fighters that I've been around over the last, say, 30 years. It's something deep, it's something personal. You just know this is special.
I agree, and they've been very respectful to each other.
Which I like. Big fan of that.
As do I. But you can sense, I agree, that the tension is building because this is real now. It's fight week, it's Tuesday, it's still 4 or 5 days away. But there is definite tension and there's definite hype. And for us, that's great. I think you're right to say when we look back on this in 20 years' time, it will be a moment in time. We've definitely approached it on that basis at DAZN. And we're proud, honestly, to be broadcasting this one. We've been talking a lot about women's sport as a business recently. We've got the Women's Champions League rights globally. The numbers we're seeing there, the interest, the attendances around those games, especially recently at the Camp Nou in Barcelona with the El Clasico quarter-final.
That looked like a fake picture, didn't it? It looked like it had been generated. It was mad. It was incredible.
I mean, it's one of the most highly attended football games in Europe this year of any category, men's or women's. So that is fantastic. The attendance and the imagery from Saturday night will be spectacular. As I say, we'll be very proud at DAZN to be broadcasting it.
You know, final question, and thanks for your time, Joe. I appreciate it because I know there's a lot of people edging to get next to you and have a chat with you. Last weekend, I was at Wembley, 90-odd thousand, great event. In my privileged position at ringside, I could tap the canvas from my position, and that is a privileged position. I never forget it. It'll be the same here at the weekend. I'll be 5 feet from the ring. It's a privileged position. I do a thing before the fight where I stand up and I have to remind myself how special it is. You've been at a lot of big fights. You've been really close to some of those enormous Canelo nights in stadiums, and you've been at some other, lots of other stuff. And you've been at other big sports events. But do you think there'll be a moment on Saturday in Madison Square Garden, the sort of spiritual home of boxing, where you might have to sort of just take a little breath, take a little Joe moment? Can I introduce the Joe moment to the conversation? Take a little Joe moment and look up there and go, whew, it's not bad, this.
Yeah, it's great, and we're lucky to do what we do. I often think that at many sporting events, but obviously some hit home more than others. This does not feel like a run-of-the-mill event.
No,
as you say, this feels like a milestone, a moment in time. We have thrown the kitchen sink in it from a promotional perspective.
Good.
That has landed.
Brilliant.
Again, we're doing that with good business reasons to do so. Yeah, we'll be excited. Generally at fights, I get insulted by Eddie Hearn that my knowledge of boxing isn't as good as his. But he's an absolute nose for it, so I don't mind that at all. But yeah, aside from that, I'll be ticking around and enjoying the fight.
Just tell him, say, hey, whoa, I'm just having a Joe moment.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
Joe moments at ringside.
Joe moments at ringside. Don't worry, but that's going to be coming up again and again. Joe, thanks very much.
Good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Joe, it's always a pleasure and a delight to talk to you. I'm going to see if I can find Cole. I'm just going to check. So, yeah, listen, let's find the. Sorry, can I say the champagne earlier? The Verve, it wasn't that cold. Coral, fantastic. Coral.
You found me.
As if I'm drinking champagne. Cody, I tell you what, it's been a productive 40 minutes.
Yeah, I've just seen you sit down with both fighters.
Yeah, and I think I might have been about the only person in the room that got both of them.
What did you think? What did you think when you saw them actually in the flesh and heard them speaking?
Very much like what you and I were talking about, which seems like about 2 days ago when we first arrived here.
It's at least 13 drinks ago.
Yeah, exactly. She looked. Katie was focused, quiet, like she always is. She's not. It's not that she's unhappy to do it. It's just that she doesn't like doing it. And I said to her, as I said to her, Katie, if you had the choice, you wouldn't do this, would you? You'd just be in your room with your Bible, watching a bit of TV. And she said yes. Then I spoke to Amanda, and she was. Edgy's maybe not the right word, but I don't know, just a little bit tense or tight or
nervous energy.
Yeah, nervous energy, like sort of semi-false laugh. You know the kind of thing I mean. Not relaxed, but maybe she. I don't know enough. Sorry, I've never been around her during fight week, Cole. So
exactly.
I don't know about you. The way I like to do it is that, so I know what fighters are like in fight week. So
yes, some of them can turn very funny.
Yeah, I've got to know what they're like. So over in the last 5 years, don't go anywhere near Josh Taylor for a week. Josh Warrington, give him a few days as well. Other fighters, they're no different on the day of the fight or the day before the fight than they are 6 weeks earlier. So it's still like Sonny Edwards. You could talk to Sonny Edwards as he walks to the ring. And so I don't know enough about Amanda. So I don't know if this is what she's like 4 or 5 days before every fight. I know that's basically what Katie's like. But she did admit, Katie, that yeah, she's not unaware of the magnitude of the event, Coral.
Well, that's good. And she does look. Some people say she looks bored at most events, but that's just the way Katie is. For a woman that we don't know anything about, she certainly wears her feelings on her face in a media sense.
That is funny, that, isn't it? That here's Katie, who's been public property in Ireland for 15, 16 years, minimum, and worldwide since about the Olympics 2012, so that's 10 years, and yet we know nothing about her. Like, I don't know anything. I don't know what film she likes. I don't know about any of her private life. Not that I want to pry about her private life.
No.
I know she sort of spreads her home, Connecticut where she trains and Ireland where she's originally from. But we know nothing about her.
No, I know she bought a speedboat recently, or in the last year.
Well, you've got the inside scoop.
I don't have the inside scoop.
She bought a speedboat?
I don't.
Why didn't you tell me that earlier? I would have asked about a speedboat.
I think that's her, unless I'm referencing the wrong interview. But I don't know. I've been watching her. She won her first World Championships when I was 14 in Ireland. I've been watching her fight. I've listened to hundreds of thousands of interviews with her. I know nothing about her other than that she's a very good fighter.
But what we do know is that there's nothing awkward or bad that we don't know. So there's no sort of rumours that, you know what, she's a problem. She does X, she does Y.
No, there's no diva rumours.
No. Isn't that mad? There are no diva rumours.
No.
And there are no bad rumours. Could she just be this really decent person who just is exceptional at hitting people?
It could be. But the interesting thing about Katie, she's never changed. She's always been like that. She has... My own family have been watching her being interviewed for years, and my dad told me before the last fight, when I interviewed her and when other people interviewed her, he said, oh, she's come out of her shell a little bit, but that's because the shell was closed beforehand.
Yeah.
So she has relaxed. She has got more used to the big time in recent years, and has certainly realized that she can't be as such a closed book as she was previously. But really, she's an amazing fighter. That's all we know.
But we do want her to do things. And Brian Peters, who's looked after her since she turned professional and known her for longer, we all want her to do, not stunts, but I don't mean fake head-to-heads and pushing and shoving,
No.
but, they would have her coming into, I don't know, a river dance troupe dancing and someone singing. They would.
Okay. Let's not go down the Irish racism route here, Steve.
But the casual Irish racism route, which Tyson Fury exploited so brilliantly last week with his knights in, St George's colours, that sort of jingoism, provided it's not unpleasant, I don't know if he's still alive, Michael Flatley from River. I want Michael Flatley to dance her to the ring, I really do.
Nobody wants that, Steve.
I do.
Okay.
And I tell you what, 19,000 people inside there would go crazy for it. Because Amanda might have some, like, Saul Canelo Alvarez, let me tell you, last October, Saul Canelo Alvarez fights, and he comes out to a guy who's like basically the Mick Jagger of Mexico. He's like a 75-year-old rocker who's sold more music than anybody. He can barely walk, but he's still dressed up like he's a 20-year-old rock and roller. And he sings his great song, whatever it is. And I was at that fight, and my position for BT was up in the stand slightly raised. It was 20,000 people in the T-Mobile. I have never experienced anything like it, because there was recognition when this singer walked out. Everyone saw him on the big screen. It had been kept secret, and he started belting out his top song. The place went absolutely crazy. So that's the type of thing I'm talking about. And if she's got the Puerto Rican equivalent of that, and Katie comes out to I don't know, something nice. It's just the fans love that stuff.
They do love that stuff, but I think Katie will have something planned. It's not every day that you headline at Madison Square Garden as an Irish woman. I mean, it's amazing that our island only has 4 million, 5 million. It's ridiculous the amount of talent that we've produced at a fighting level, and Katie's just the latest in a long line, the first female really, apart from Deirdre Gogarty, who came before.
Now that was a pioneer. We know we discussed this word pioneer. Deirdre was a pioneer because she used her ability to its absolute limit, and she forced it, and she crossed the Atlantic, and she forced and pushed it. She put herself in fights she had no chance of winning to raise her profile and the profile of women's boxing and women's boxing in Ireland. She's a great lady, Deirdre Gogarty.
She is, and she really, if we're saying Katie is a pioneer and did everything that no one had done before, Deirdre cleared the path for her.
Absolutely,
It was good timing.
We should try and get Deirdre on the phone.
You
spoke to her, haven't you?
No, I've never spoken. I spoke to Jane Couch last week.
Oh, okay.
Who sung the praises of Deirdre Gogarty.
When Deirdre had a book come out about 5-6 years ago, which I've got, I remember, I might still have her number. It's one of those things, if I type in Deirdre in my phone, no. I don't, if it's a box, I wouldn't have Deirdre, it'd be like Boxer Deirdre or something like that. So I can get her there. Well, I tell you what, we're getting closer. You've had a little look today. I won't ask you for your prediction, but
I won't give it to you.
Have you seen anything today that's making you not change your mind, but giving you a little bit of food for thought as you get closer to actually doing and making a prediction?
No, because I think both fighters look as I expected them to be. Amanda was never going to come into this fight looking cool as ice, and Katie was always going to come into this fight looking like she wished she was somewhere else. So, no, not to say that anything has changed me. I think if you were to ask me this on Sunday, I'd be saying something completely different going on. I knew from Tuesday that Katie wasn't right or Amanda, but at the moment, I think we're as it stands,
If you said on Sunday that you knew from Tuesday that whatever happened, then all you'd be doing is joining all of the other boxing writers that I've known in the last 35 years who have never got a prediction wrong on a Sunday morning.
No, you haven't, have you?
Oh, me? Oh, listen. The first thing I do is show people how wrong I was last week. But here's the thing I always say to people: when you get a prediction spot on, like Joe Calzaghe won't lose a second of a round against Jeff Lacey, and he'll drop him late in the fight. He wins every second. Even though Boxing News predicted Joe Calzaghe would get stopped, even though every single American boxing writer in a poll predicted Joe Calzaghe would lose, and I tipped that. It was brilliant. It was in the paper at the time, so you had a win with that one. But the thing is, then you get one slightly wrong. People never praise you for the ones you get right. They only remind you about the ones you get wrong.
Well, it doesn't matter if you've got one win, you've got 75 defeats, Steve, so down the year. So you're 1 in 75. That's not a great record. That's a bit of a journeyman.
Over the last 30 years, I'm probably 632 right. Jake Paul just leaving the meeting. Probably 632 right, and I don't know, 748 wrong. But it balances out in the end.
That's a lot of fights, Buns.
It's too many fights.
That's too many. Is it? I shouldn't say that.
No, it's a lot of fights. Come on, listeners, they're light and a pleasure. Sorry about kicking you off earlier on, but there was people I had to speak to.
No worries.
Madison Square Garden on Saturday night, the Empire State Building on Tuesday afternoon, some fancy bar on Tuesday afternoon late. We're going to be in a gym watching them train, then we're going to be at the press conference, then we're going to be at the weigh-in. It's going to be a busy, relentless, non-stop week as we move closer to a sellout, and we move closer to not just the biggest and greatest women's fight of all time, but a special event for boxing in what is a very, very special period. I've been Steve Bunce. I had Coral Barrow with me for most of the show. Thanks to Sky Nicholson. Thanks to Joe Markovsky. Thanks, of course, to Amanda Serrano for finding a bit of time. And thanks to Katie Taylor for sitting down with us. It's just the start of a big week. Join us tomorrow. You know what? I love fight weeks like this.
Let's get ready to rumble! 5 Live Boxing.